Yes, winter is hanging on hard and determined not to let us go. Usually we're seeing a little grass by this time, but this winter really does not want to let go. And as we're all hankering to see the greens of woods and meadows and some golden summer sun, I thought I'd harken back to late last August, when the day before a foraging class I was out scouting and came across one of the most magnificent mushroom harvests I've ever come across in my life. It's Friday, August 26, 2016, and I'm out doing some scouting for the upcoming foraging class tomorrow. And this foraging class is on mushrooms. I'm just scouting the woods to see what's up and about. I see I need to start doing some serious foraging ASAP because the mushrooms are here. I don't know what happened to the cantharellus, the chanterelles this year. They seem to have largely bypassed us except for their small cousins, the craterellus. But we have quite a few boletes and other types of mushrooms suddenly coming up. I wouldn't be surprised if over at base 1 where bluets like to grow, there's some bluets coming in there. This here little batch I picked up just walking through the woods, and I'm going to go and set them down now. I didn't even carry a basket with me because I wasn't anticipating too much given how poor the mushroom season's been this year. But I've just come across a group of gigantic boletes that are huge, 6 to 9 inches in diameter, and look to be pristine and perfect. I've even come across some seps. It was a late season this year, but the boletes and other edibles are going to do pretty well. I can't say for sure about the cantharellus, but I suspect we're going to see quite a few boletes, including seps and lexinums, and I've already harvested some suilus. It's going to be a good mushroom year after all. I've just passed by some rasulas deeper in the forest, quite a few of them. And some rasulas can be excellent eating, some can be bland, some can make you pretty sick. I don't think any are deadly, but I tend to avoid gilled mushrooms as a rule. Maybe I'll get lucky though and come across some matsutake. These that I thought were boletes, these are lexinums, huge lexinums. Look at the size of it. Good foraging. I've never seen a bolete yield like this. There are so many. Everywhere you look that I'm only bothering to pick the best of the best. Some of these are boletes, some of these are lexinums. Come across a couple of suilus yesterday, and I just am only bothering to pick the best of the best of the best. I've already harvested sacks of them, and it's just day 2. It's as if yesterday nature sent out a signal to everything. All blackberries and all wild blackberries and raspberries are to ripen today, and my daughter and wife have been out picking as fast as they can, and all the mushrooms are to emerge yesterday. My daughter Natalia went outside for a mere half hour today. There's another one just by the jewel weed over there. My daughter Natalia went outside for just a half hour today. Came back with a full gallon of blackberries. I've been out here even less time. And I've already got about 1/5 of my harvesting bag here full. Not since Alaska have I seen anything like this. There are just mushrooms everywhere. Right there, right there. They're all through the forest. Every other step there are more boletes. I usually hike a couple miles through the woods to fill a couple sacks. I haven't made it a quarter of a mile. Cantharellus mushrooms have not put in an appearance this year. But the land is certainly making up with it with boletes. And right there, we can see a Canada Mayflower with its berries almost ripe. Those berries taste like cranberries. There'll be a surfeit of those too in about a month. And I see just beyond, right there, there's another bolete. There's another bolete right there. And over there, the woods are just thick with them. I'll be busy here for a while. This is going to be probably my best mushroom foraging day since Alaska. Look at them all. There's just so many. They go on and on and on. Normally, we pick as many mushrooms as we can before the season's over. And it's a race to get enough to get us by through the year. It's not going to be that way this year. I will get all the mushrooms we need for the year today, and today alone. And that'll have to be it unless I see a sep or something particularly delectable that we really want. I'll have to call it quits. This is what happens when you allow a forest to grow undisturbed, to allow the forest to grow with a balanced ecology. The forest will provide everything that you need to live on, everything that you need to care for yourself. I think that tall plant is bone set right there. Now, if the Department of Natural Resources would stop cutting the woods down every 25 or 30 years to make a few $100s per acre, forest farmers could make several $100s per acre with harvests of wild mushrooms, truffles that grow naturally in Nova Scotia and are worth as much as hundreds of dollars per ounce, and medicinal herbs, wild food herbs that could be sold as delicacies at farmers markets and at restaurants. The way we go about forestry in this province is so backward, so inefficient. It's as if the Department of Natural Resources conspired with big business and big government to create the least effective, least efficient, and most environmentally destructive business model possible, and then does everything in their power to maintain that insane status quo. There's another one. They're just all over. I could go on and on. I'm not even going to have time to really shoot video. I'm going to be harvesting and harvesting and harvesting, and I do need to get up and get blackberries late this afternoon because like the mushrooms, they also don't keep. So I have to get this done. This is very interesting to me. This is a slice of a stipe of Alexinum that I just harvested. And the Alexinums right around here have had a small bug burrowing into them. And you can find the bug easily by slicing off the stipe at the base and looking for those little holes. And those little holes are there. But that's not what's interesting to me. About 1 in 20 mushrooms around here will have something already preying on it before I get to it. What's interesting to me is that blue coloration. I've never seen a Alexinum turn blue like this before. Now, not the world's greatest expert on Alexinums, I just harvest those that I find around here. But I've never seen a Alexinum show blue discoloration before. And Alexinum is closely related to the bolete. This Alexinum might be edible despite turning blue, but as they are closely related to the bolete, I would follow my principle of checking for the blues and discarding any bolete that turns blue, even with the Alexinums, and discarding these. It's just interesting though to see blue on a lexinum. That's not even a warning sign according to some of the more authoritative works like Michael Kuo's 100 Edible Mushrooms. Now here's the lexinum that blue ink slice came off of. It just looks like a typical lexinum of this area. But if you look at the base of the stipe, it's not turning blue. It's turning kind of a reddish purple, black, and many lexinums will change to that color when they're sliced and they oxidize, just like an apple turns brown when it's exposed to the air. But that blue right there, that is truly bizarre. I have no idea what to make of that. Whenever you find a mushroom and you realize you can't use it, maybe because it has bugs in it, or maybe because it has some sort of vermin in it, or it has a fungal infection itself. Yes, mushrooms are fungi, but even fungi can be infected with fungi. Or maybe it just turns out to be an inedible. Whatever the case, turn the pilus, the cap over, face it down. The cap will continue to produce and release spores until it dries out and can't function anymore. In fact, even better, put it on some little spot like that where it gets some exposure to some air and the spores can spread out somewhat. And let the mushroom go ahead and reproduce. That's how you ensure that you maintain your mushroom population in a given area of forest or meadow. When you're harvesting mushrooms, take your knife and clip off the very base of the stipe where the dirt is. Always be sure to get that dirt off before you put your mushroom in your basket. Personally, I don't use a basket. I take recyclable bags into the woods with me. And I find that they let the air flow enough to keep the mushrooms from spoiling. And if I am harvesting particularly delicate mushrooms, I can just take some small flexible sticks and put a few in there to spread them out much like an umbrella, and that works fine. But when you clip the bases of the stipes, also check underneath for what looks like little dots or holes. You can see them here, they're very subtle. But those are created by little burrowing vermin. If you find them in there, just a few, especially if the mushroom's young like this one, this mushroom's only about 1.5 inches in diameter, keep clipping slice by slice, maybe going a half inch up per time along the stipe, and see if you can get to where there's no more of those little dots. Those dots are tunnels created by small beetle-like vermin, and if you can get up above them, then you can prevent them from burrowing into the cap, as I'm going to do with this here. If they've gotten into the cap, well, they're just insects. You can slice the cap very thin, set them out. Most of the time they'll vacate, and most of the time that's what I do. But there are just so many mushrooms this year, I'm not even bothering with these. If I see they have vermin, I'm just breaking off the stipes, laying the caps down on some twigs so they can spread their spores and leaving them to reproduce. I know I'm starting to sound like a broken record, but I have never seen mushrooms emerge like this before. They're everywhere. Right there. We have another mushroom. We have another right there. And another just beyond it. And another just beyond it. And another. And another. It just goes on and on. There are so many mushrooms today that I'm literally finding picked mushrooms that have fallen out of trees. They're laying on their sides at the basis of all these trees. What's going on is that the squirrels, the red squirrels in this area, they know that these mushrooms can be dried. And they're bringing them up into the trees. Now, I don't interfere with the squirrels. Once they've gathered the mushrooms and they put them in the trees, as far as I'm concerned, those are their mushrooms. But if they fall down to the ground, they're just going to go to waste, so I go ahead and harvest them. And this is the strangest thing. There are mushrooms all over the ground, and there are very fresh mushrooms that have already been picked and are laying on the ground under the trees as if they're apples. Squirrel mushrooms, I call them.
Keep watching to learn more about the natural world and the joys of getting to know it. As always, go soft, go gently, and leave no trace.
Let's go home, boy.